Hi, Kat. Welcome to the show. I am so pleased to have you join me today. Welcome.
Thank you, Julianne. I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you. And today's going to be a very special episode that I've been really looking forward to. And it's our very first behind the scenes episode. And you are absolutely the perfect person to have this conversation with. Not just because we know each other for 10 years, but also our journeys have been so complementary and we've gone through so much together and now we work together. And I think this is a beautiful opportunity to bring your energies and share something really special. So once again, welcome.
Thank you. I'm
Mhm.
excited to be here and can't wait to have this discussion.
Yay.
Long time coming. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So maybe let's begin by you telling us. I want to know two things. I want to know, introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah.
Of course, you're a big part of our community and Naturally Joyous.
Thank you.
And I also want to know something surprising about you.
Okay. All right. Oh, surprises. Um, a little personally about myself is that I live in North Vancouver, originally from Strathroy and then London, Ontario. So Windsor, Strathroy, and London, so southwestern Ontario. And I live with my husband, Dwayne, for 37 years. We've been together and we have two adult children, and we also have a grandson.
Aw.
My role with Naturally Joyous and the weight release shift program is as a success coach. And it's just such amazing job to have. I mean, it's the job I've always dreamed of. I
Oh,
get to work with such beautiful women,
yeah.
in my age group, right? So, 50s and 60s, everyone's so unique and brings so much experience and life to their weight release journey. And I get to work with them, success, helping them with success on a one-to-one basis, which is fun. I love the intimacy of one-to-one, but then also in a collaborative basis in our private group, coaching group, in our
Yeah.
private support group. It is so much fun. So we talk a lot about food, of course, and our love of food, but we also, talk about the nutrients, what keeps us fueled
Yeah.
for this part of our life journey, right?
Yeah,
It's so
exactly.
important. Yeah, but we're not all about food. Our life is more than that. And we talk about lifestyle and our joy, what brings us joy, right?
Yeah.
What do we find, what do we want for the rest of our lives? And setting us up for success in that regard. So
Yeah.
it's such important conversations. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much, Kat. And it's very true. And my business and how I've, always wanted to serve women is rooted in three things that are really important to me that are authenticity in the sense of everybody being valued and respected for who they are, how they
Yes.
are, right? Empowerment that everybody leaves like a gathering with us or a conversation with us feeling better than when they first came. And hospitality that everybody feels truly deeply welcomed and valued. And you embody those three core values in the business so beautifully and so naturally. And I think that is like such a blessing to our community to have you serving us, guiding us, sharing your knowledge, your expertise, but also your personal path, right? Because we're all, an extension, like our business, our work, our personal lives are all kind of intertwined, right? And bringing all of us to the table. It's something that you've done such a beautiful job as supporting in a non-judgmental space, which is a big part of what we do, right? So, yeah. So I wanted to publicly and
Yeah.
say that you do a fantastic job, and it's such a blessing having somebody like you walking side by side with me as we are making an impact in the weight loss for midlife community. So yay.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
Juliana. So tell me about um what you do in the program. Like I know, but I want you to tell us
Yes.
what you do in the and also we didn't do the surprising thing. So I'm going to turn the
Oh,
tables
yes.
on you and tell you what's a surprising thing about you. So those
Yeah.
those two pieces.
Yes, absolutely. And it's fun because I've recorded before this episode like over 190 episodes, and I've never been interviewed on the podcast. So this
Yeah,
behind the scenes, like flipping the
yeah,
role is
turn the
actually
tables.
fun. Um,
Yeah.
so in terms of what I do, I'd say pride and joy is that I help women specifically in their 50s and 60s with weight release. That's like the big picture. But really the how we do it is by truly honoring who everybody are in the individual level. And we do the science piece through testing such as DNA testing. And on the emotional piece, through a lot of our work with human behavior, understanding motivation, understanding how we make choices, so that we, one, know what is best for you, and then you do all the help customizing, right? Bridging the knowledge to what they're actually doing, but also the emotional piece, helping women implement, because knowledge is powerful if we put it into action, right? So our work is based on the two sides, the two components of it. And really, for me, the motivation behind this type of work is very much similar to what you said, is like seeing the transformation and seeing the impact, right, that it has in our lives and the lives of our clients. And I think there's nothing more exciting to me to see somebody learn something about their bodies that could actually meaningfully change their life and their energy levels and their outcomes and their happiness level. Like that is just absolutely
Absolutely.
motivating to me. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now,
I get that. Totally get that.
right? It's very fulfilling work. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now the surprise piece, right, that you asked, I'll say what is probably most surprising from at least the feedback I get is my background. I think people don't necessarily expect the path that I took to get here. I started my career in veterinary medicine and did not complete a program. I shifted paths, but I think I've been studying health and wellness and nutrition and all those different things for over 20 years now. And I think that's a bit surprising to people. And coming in with like 2 degrees in food systems, so really understanding how our food is grown and raised, all the way to then incorporate how food is processed, ingredient labeling, regulatory, and later on the testing, the functional side. So I think I have such a behind the scenes perspective on the entirety of the
Yes, you
journey
do.
that is healthy eating and so on that I think it brings a surprising element to the work I do that some people don't expect. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, like, yeah, the depth of that knowledge, right? Building and building and building. And there's such a huge foundation you have to bring
Yeah.
forward. And um, it comes over and over and again, I hear in behind the scenes, right? I
Yes.
see it day to day to day. And and that's why I think, but from my opinion, I think that that's why this program is so unique
Oh,
because of the background you bring. And there's nothing out there like it. Not
thank
nothing.
you.
So Juliana, tell us why you think more people need more women in their 50s and 60s need to hear about weight release.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say something I have observed, like, being specifically somewhere in the weight loss field, at least for the last 10 years, is that
Mhm.
there's so much focus in women's health for fertility, right? I know we have a
Yeah.
lot of knowledge in that, and pregnancy prevention. I would say those two are pretty big pockets of knowledge and information. But then when
Yeah.
women get into their 40s and, of course, later 50s, 60s and beyond, the focus diminishes and we don't hear as much. There's a lot of taboos. There's a lot of, I would say, the attention shifts. And I believe there is a huge amount of opportunity because women will spend the majority of their lives in that side of the science, right?
Yeah.
And what works in our 20s, what works in our 30s will not necessarily, and for a lot of women, definitely not work really well, the strategies, I mean, in their 50s, 60s, and beyond. So if all we are telling women is eat less, move more, push to the gym, do those things that are leading to injuries and a lot of disappointment, I think there's so much self-blame and hormones are changing. All those things are happening, right? That I think women just blame themselves because what else, right? They're just, being told the wrong information. And I think that for me is, a big driver to making a difference in the sense that's not about, who is right, who is wrong, is about offering a different strategy that's a lot more individual so that you understand your body and then we can change things for your body, regardless of the fads and the popular advices out there, so
True.
that we bring back the control, so that you feel empowered to actually do something about it, right? And the difference between weight loss and weight release is that weight loss is more external, like we're working towards an external physical goal. Whereas weight release is like an internal game that we're caring about our hormones, caring about, what we fuel our bodies, yes, but very deeply also caring about how we feel, our emotions, our mental state, the other part of the coin that I think is equally important. So the reason why I want more women to know about this is that there is another option out there for them, right? That we, very diligently customized and built to bring to them that is accessible, that can give them a very different outcome from, I would say, a pretty global problem. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we become more and more unique as we get older because
Yeah.
we've had this lifetime, right, of things to make us so, so individual.
Yes.
Our likes and dislikes, even that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
and the DNA piece is just uh huge, huge. I know for me, um, I did my DNA and you
Yeah.
interpreted it for me.
Yes.
And it made some of it I knew,
Hmm.
instinctively knew. But you know what? When you think intuitively, you know something, but then the media and Facebook and
Yes.
Instagram are all telling you other things, then you start to doubt,
Yeah.
well, is this just me? Yes, and to trust that and knowing my DNA and you interpreting it for
Mhm.
me, giving me the scientific, like there's nothing wrong with me. And that was
Exactly.
like huge, like there's nothing wrong with me. And
Yeah.
there's two things I really gleaned from that
Hmm.
interpretation. Was the first is um, you know, doing the whole like the keto diet. Like everybody was doing so well on keto. And I was like, I'm gaining weight. Like this is not making sense. What's wrong? Again, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And finding out through the interpretation of the DNA testing I did through you is that there's nothing wrong with me. My body just doesn't do it that way.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's such a relief, such a relief.
Hmm.
And the second thing was um, all my hardcore exercising for years. I worked so hard. Like I did, high intensity training. I did, cycling, road cycling, trying to keep up with my husband all over Vancouver, 60, 70K at a time. Um, you know, backcountry hiking, all of these things. Then I was still gaining weight. Like you would
Hmm.
think like that doesn't make any sense. But
Hmm.
again, the DNA testing and realizing, and I actually had injuries because I was pushing myself
Yeah.
so hard. And the DNA testing told me, by the way, you need a lot of recovery time. That's just the way you're built.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So where, we should have done it 10 years ago, sort of thing. So that's why it's such a relief to have that evidence, to have that.
Yeah.
And so now going forward, I know how to care for my body better because I have a roadmap
Hmm.
that's unique to me. And that's
Yeah.
I find so exciting about your program. And that's what's so, so unique. So unique.
Yeah. Thanks so
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
sharing that, Kat. Like
Oh,
it's
you're welcome.
it's a nice perspective, right? Because especially the two things you touched on, I think are so important and valuable, like the keto diet being so popular, right?
Mhm.
And we both know because the clients we work with that, yeah, we have clients that tried that before coming to us and either couldn't sustain because of how restrictive it was, which in some
Yeah.
cases that could be the case. But for other people, it actually does not work unless you're doing a crazy caloric deficit, and that's not sustainable or healthy long term and all those things. But it's very much understanding like what is the ideal fuel for our bodies, right? And I just want to take like one quick step back and mention something in context to what you said that, our DNA, we're born this way, right? It is what it is. And that technically can be changed. It can be optimized but not changed. But what
Yeah.
you said is very true. That is about not blaming yourself because there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
So that people say, okay, so why am I having symptoms, right? And the way that I like to put that in context is your DNA is unchanging, but if your environment is not overlapping, not contradicting, then you're not going to have the best possible outcomes of your genetic potential, right? So our job as we're interpreting the results is to see, okay, who are you, genetically speaking, and what are the super important parts of your DNA that we need to really address and adjust? Which areas can you compromise so that,
Hmm.
right, we're matching environment with your genetics as closely as possible with the least amount of effort possible so that you can
Exactly.
have the best outcomes, right? So I just wanted
Exactly.
to add that piece there. And the exercise is so important as well because, and I actually talk more about that. We can talk later about that, but I talk more about that in some of the trainings I do that women believe, right? That just pushing more at the gym is what they need to do, or it's what's lacking in their weight loss or weight release regime. And unfortunately, that's scientifically proven to not be the case, right? So bringing this awareness to more women is also an important part. So thank you for bringing this up.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. That's again unique component and so important in this, especially, right?
Yeah.
And what are the biggest mistakes? So I just told you mine. So I may have given away some of that, but what are the biggest mistakes that you find that women in their 50s and 60s um, are 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 doing? I don't know the best way of doing
Hmm.
in this part of the life to trying to release weight or lose weight. What
Yeah.
what are they doing
Yeah. That's
that
a
they can change?
A very important question.
Yeah.
And I'll say I'll put that into maybe two buckets of like the
Okay.
major ones. I would say I'll do like a third. So one of the buckets is disregarding their emotional state and how they feel. I'll say that is a pretty big bucket. So I'll just like in general, a lot of times people think, oh, it's I don't have enough motivation, I don't have enough willpower, and then the self-blame comes, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's not so much something they're doing. So that's why maybe it's a weird way to answer. But I would say it is a mistake in belief systems that we think we're faulty because we don't have motivation or something like that. And that
Yeah.
is something very specific that we work in the program to sort of help women overcome, right? Because um that is just it's actually something that we can solve for, that it's not necessarily the problem. It's more the consequence, not the problem. But in
Yeah.
terms of the two big mistakes that I see, the first bucket I would say is the fight between hormones and calories. And I see this more often than, I would like women are starving themselves and starving their bodies because they think that's the only way, right, to release weight. So they're in high calorie deficits, almost like crash diet territory. And the problem with that is that if you're not in your high stress, running on, full steam ahead and you're not actually nourishing your body, it's eventually going to catch up, right, with us. And not putting enough fuel and nutrients in, it's going to mess up everything, including hormones, including detox, including blood sugar. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing that maybe in our 20s and 30s that may have worked for some time. But I think that is a problem in our 50s and 60s to go on those really high, low calorie diets. I rather help them focus on foundational hormone balance, right, to get the outcomes they want. And the second big bucket of mistakes I see relates to exactly what you said is the fitness, the fitness bucket that
Yeah.
women believe that just by burning more calories through exercise, so basically under eating and over exercising, that they're going to be able to get that calories in, calories out equation to work in their favor. And that never works, right? Maybe for a couple of months and then it all kind of falls apart because our bodies are designed to survive and exist and not disappear, right? So if we could just keep over exercising to the nth degree, one time it would no longer be, right? That's just not how it works. And
That's
there's
so
enough
true.
actual published research on this saying if you burn extra calories by pushing in the gym, the body will compensate in other body systems, even if you say I'm hungry after exercising, I'm not eating. I'm going to keep my calories down. The body's going to lower how much energy it expands in your reproductive system, immune system, and so on. So net, once you get into an equilibrium at the end of the day, you're not actually spending any more, even if you spent hours and hours exercising, but you may actually be overloading your detox systems, malnourishing your body. So there's actually consequences if you push it too far, because exercise is healthy for you, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but it's not an efficient way to burn calories. And I think that is not with the intention of weight loss. I mean, and I think that is something else that women are told so often, that it's so much confusion in that topic that becomes a big mistake. So I focus on lowering inflammation and balancing hormones, specifically cortisol, insulin, caring for
Mhm.
a thyroid, instead of dramatically lowering calories or pushing at the gym.
Absolutely. And who likes to starve and who likes to go crazy at the gym, go, go,
Yeah.
go, go, go. So it's such a freedom to be able to say, gentler
Mhm.
is better. And everybody's like,
Yeah.
yay.
Yes.
Ooh, big sigh of relief, and it's actually a good thing. And
Yeah.
we can do
Yeah.
less work, and to enjoy this part of our lives, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's less
So
work, but it's targeted work, right? So you're
it is
you have
smarter.
certainty of the things that you're actually working on, right?
Yes,
And
true.
knowing the things that are not going to move the needle, that you don't have to do them. So I think that is really a big part of that win-win situation. Yeah.
That's right. It's more with intention,
Yeah.
and letting go of things that tricks that we used to do in our 20s, that to get into that dress we were going to a wedding in or whatever, right? So
Yes.
those tricks don't work anymore, and just being smarter about it and learning, like, okay, what do we do at this time in our life?
Yeah.
And who's telling us other than a gimmick, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and I really like your way of it's that teaching a woman to fish,
Yes.
so that they'll eat forever. So
Yeah.
it's teaching you how to do it for yourself, and not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
It's learning about to care for you and your uniqueness. That's really, I see, resonating with our clients, and really having that effect of positive
Yeah.
uh, life effect.
And I'll add something briefly here, kind of like for something you
Sure.
mentioned that brought it to my mind. So it's kind of like, if I don't know if women are inclined to do this, but I know I'm not, but some people are. You get a new gadget, say a new phone, and you look at the user manual, right? I usually just go and try everything. And usually what it means is that I'm missing out on so many features, right? The DNA test is almost like the user manual for our body, so we can maximize the features that we actually have and know about, right? And also, from what I've seen doing this interpretation for now, basically every client we have in the program, is that we see a spectrum of clients that are very much like myself, that have a lot of, challenges. Say, I'll use myself as the example. I have a lot of challenges on the emotional piece in terms of how my mood and, perceptions or reality impacts my appetite, my ability to feel full, to binge eat, all those things I've known I've had as a problem, now genetically understand why, right? All the way to say my detox systems that are, I would say, very, I don't know, use the word vulnerable, like very delicate. So I have a pretty hard time with anything that's ultra processed, heavy metals, environmental toxins. My body has a real hard time. And then looking at my history of autoimmune conditions, 15 plus years of chronic migraines, it explains a lot of my symptoms because my environment was directly pushing into body systems that I have a harder time with, right? All the
Absolutely.
way to seeing clients that have a very, very, very tough and resilient genetic makeup.
Yep.
But then what happens on the other hand is that they're so resilient that they push themselves to such an extreme
Oh,
level, right?
yeah.
So they almost like, keep pushing because their body allows them to, but everybody has a tipping point. We're still human, right? We're not machines. And then we hit that tipping point, and then a lot of the same symptoms kind of present because we are now on the other side of the spectrum. So I think it's beautiful to see where are you on the spectrum so that you have your own tipping point, which is different for all of us, right? Therefore,
True.
the strategies also change based on who you are. And I think that is where the magic lies. That's why you and I don't promote a diet that has any of those fancy names, right? Because it will depend on who you are in terms of what is the best fuel, as an example, or how to best exercise, right? So that is very much, I just wanted to mention that because
Oh,
something is
it's a
that
really good,
triggered that thought. Yeah.
very good clarification. And just because your DNA says, oh, you are, resilient at this, doesn't mean you haven't passed that point of, so it's
Yes,
not like a
exactly.
magic, oh, I am super person when
Yes.
it comes to that. No, you still, but you can get away with a little bit more as well. I found
Yeah.
that interesting for dairy as well. Like
Yeah.
I can tolerate dairy. Whereas everybody's always like, oh, no, Terry's. So it allows me to say, well, I can expand that in my diet a little bit
Yeah.
more, whether I want to or not, that's up to me. But I have that kind of ability.
Yeah.
But do I want to have dairy, 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 cheese, cheese, cheese? Oh, well, then I'm going to get into trouble, right?
Yeah.
Ice cream, no, that doesn't mean that. So, but it just gives you kind of a, okay, I know where I can kind of get away with a little bit. And
Yeah.
but there are certain things that I'm, you know, for instance, gluten is I'm probably best not. I have a little more, not as much tolerance, but it allows me to make those decisions for myself, and it allows me to assist with clients who have, different parameters of that DNA. So
Yeah.
it gives you choices. Like so,
Exactly.
yeah,
And on the
yeah,
same basis, what you said, like on the super DNA, like a new term we came
yeah,
up with, all the way to the not so super DNA.
exactly.
You know, that is me actually. And I was so surprised, maybe not dramatic surprise, but quite surprised to see of all the different body systems we look, with the exception of cardiovascular, I'm pretty resilient there. Most body systems, I have quite a few like suboptimal results, right? And I have my entire DNA publicly shared on YouTube. So I'm going to link the episode below. So I interviewed the founder of one of the DNA companies that we work with, and he kind of did my interpretation live so women could see through my results what's possible. And what I
Yep.
think is interesting about that conversation is the fact that I feel the healthiest I have ever been
Mhm.
now in my 40s, knowing what I know for the last 20 years, right? And I think like if I had no knowledge and that was the first piece, then sure. But because I had so much knowledge coming into it, I was still able to see such improvements in my health as I optimized.
Yes.
And I have so many quotations, red flags, and I still feel so healthy and strong and vibrant, right? And I actually was pleased that I had such terrible results.
You're
Because,
thinking,
because I
yeah, I'm
think
doing pretty
like
good.
it shows people that despite, right,
Yeah,
having quite a few areas of potential deficiencies, if you want to use that word,
yeah,
that I can still have excellent health outcomes
yeah.
by making intentional choices, right? So I think that is one of the blessings of my not so beautiful results.
Well, yes, because
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. You don't have to have the perfect DNA to live a good, healthy life.
exactly.
People, I have heard people say, well, it's my DNA and I can do about it. Oh,
Yes.
wait, no, wait. You can. There's so many things you can do. And that's the beauty of it. So it's not a
Yeah.
give up. I'm gonna have terrible DNA. No,
Yeah.
no.
And
We
even
we are all
knowing
perfect. We're all perfect. We just
exactly.
have to know how to care for this perfect being that is us.
That is exactly it. And then understanding that if the experience we have isn't exactly what we want, is only because there's a mismatch between our environment and our potential, right? And then overlapping that as much as possible, then we feel so much better. And I'll use like a quick example too, for example, vitamin D, right? That's something we can test. We test three
Yeah.
genes for vitamin D of how it's produced in the skin, your ability to transport, and also how it actually binds to the receptor level. That's very detailed information.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is that, so for example, I have a I would say, very deficient sort of cycle metabolism for vitamin D. However, I was born and raised in Brazil, a country with so much natural sun exposure. I have, my great grandmother is actually from Africa. So we have a lineage in my family of European and Africa, right? So in my family, we have a lineage of having, ancestral DNA from countries that were really close to the equator, a lot of sun, right? So in that
Yeah,
scenario, having my deficient suboptimal vitamin D status was actually an advantage, right? Because I could have gotten too much. Now living in Canada, not so good, right? So my environment now shifted to almost no sun because of where we live now. So
yes,
now I can course correct for that. But it's not that I have a bad vitamin D DNA. It's just for the advantages of that ancestrally were there. So I think anything that we perceive as bad or negative, genetically speaking, there is an advantage from an evolutionary standpoint of why that was there in the first place. It
that's
might
right.
it may not match where we currently live in the modern lifestyle. So I think also having that almost like a kindness to how we look at the not so good results, knowing that they were good for some other purpose and
Yes.
bringing a balance, right, in perspective was also helpful for me when I was first learning about my specific situation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective. And that's just like one tiny component.
One tiny
But
component. Yes.
yeah, but all of these little nuggets, really, really, really helpful. So
Yes.
Juliana, what is the first step a woman in her 50s or 60s can take to who wants to release weight and or and explore their DNA? What can they do?
Yeah. I would say the first step is to actually educate yourself and become very clear about what is available versus what you've tried and what makes the most sense, right? For next steps. Something that I put together in the effort of helping with the education piece, I put together a very short and concise presentation because the question that I was getting more, and I know you do too, Kat, because of the work with you, is
Yes.
really okay. So what do I do? Right? Because there's all this information and so on. So what I decided to do is put this presentation that I show you specifically addressing why is it that the pushing at the gym is not working, the whole calories, why is that not working, and really
Yes.
taking the most popular advice and actually showing the behind the scenes, the science of why it doesn't work. So the educate piece. But I
Okay.
also wanted to explain if you were to, look at DNA, for example, from a functional standpoint, what exactly would you learn from a DNA? So I put together a short and very concise training on this topic breaking down step by step the work we do, but also explaining how the DNA can inform different things and what exactly you could learn.
Yeah.
And I'll put the link below in the show notes. But anybody that goes to www.naturallyjoyous.ca/start, that'll be like the very first step in the journey. Educate yourself, listen to the short presentation to see
Yeah.
all the components we're talking about. And then in there, we will give you some other options for next steps as well. So that's the first thing I would do, education.
Excellent. Excellent. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
I would say I would just really like to thank you for this role reversal. This was so much fun and, you know,
In the
being
hot seat.
interviewed on the show, but also like seeing your perspective, right? Because you've been a practitioner as well, been in this journey for 10 years together, but you also gotten, besides having the knowledge before, you got your DNA tested. And I know you've been, a big part of the program for a long time, like me, eating and practicing the things we teach. So it's really beautiful to have an external perspective, not, just from my perspective, but also from yours to sort of come together and put this together. I'm very grateful to you, everything you do in supporting women, supporting our community. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for who you are and everything you do for us. You're deeply loved and appreciated.
Right back at you. Definitely. It's just so I am just privileged to work with you and to
Oh,
I just like I tell you, I want to beat the drums and let people know, let women in their 50s and 60s know how much value you bring. And
thank you.
so yeah, it's definitely from heart centered
Yeah.
outward and yeah. more people, the better to hear this and to explore who they are and living this best life. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Exactly. Thanks, Kat. And the final thing I would say that anybody listening to us that, there's hope. There's absolutely no need to self-blame. I think we're not at blame, but we're still responsible, right, for
Yes, yes,
making the right choice, advocating for our own health. And I
yes,
do believe that no matter the situation, any form of weight loss resistance can be managed,
yes,
right? If we take the right steps with the right support, which I think is a big component, but also
yeah,
having this kindness to ourselves that maybe took you decades getting here, right? So the process of reverting that in a healthy manner may take
yeah.
some time, but nobody needs to do it alone. And that is really the core message that I wanted to close it with. Yeah.
Good
Wonderful.
message.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks, Juliana.